What's going on, guys? Sticks here with the Token Minorities, bringing you another deck on Pokemon TCGO, and today I am bringing you a standard deck centered around Primarina-GX. I know I did an expanded Archie's version, but I decided that I would, you know what, I would give it a try, see how it works in standard, and go from there. And before I get into the deck, just a reminder that if you guys liked this video or found it helpful, please leave a like, drop a comment, and maybe click that subscribe button. Really does help us out a lot and lets us do more for you guys. And as for the question of the day, honestly, with each release of the new leaked cards from Guardians Rising, I'm getting more and more hyped for this upcoming set. But one thing I'm noticing is that Water is getting not like a ridiculous amount of support, it's just getting exactly the support it could need to be really, really good. I mean, for example, like Aqua Patch, Tapu Fini EX, I mean, GX, not EX. Tapu Fini GX. I mean, I could go on, but Water is getting a ridiculous amount of support in this upcoming set. And my question of the day is, how good do you think Water's going to be after Guardians is released? I mean, in my opinion, I think that Water has so much that it could use. I mean, with Aqua Patch, Max Elixir, and Manaphy, you have it very reminiscent of the old Turbo Darkrai deck, with Dark Cloak, Dark Patch, that type of thing, to where you get Free Retreat, you're able to Dark Patch onto your Darkrai, and then Night Spear turn 1. I think that Water will start having similar effects with things like Lapras and Glaceon. I mean, right now, getting a turn 1 Blizzard Burn or Crystal Ray is something that can happen, but it's not very likely. With Aqua Patch, you can almost guarantee that you'll be able to hit for 160, 170 turn 1, or lock out your opponent's evolutions from attacking turn 1. And also you have the combination of Max Elixir and Aqua Patch to be able to power up Bubble Beat. And honestly, I think that Water is going to get really, really good. I think that it could actually become meta with this new set coming out. But I mean, again, that's probably just because I'm on the hype train as much as I am. I know that going into Sun and Moon, I was like, oh my god, TCGO is going to change the game, or Lapras is going to revamp Waterbox to be good. And admittedly, I was wrong. It was the result of just a lot of hype about new toys and stuff like that. But seriously, with the combination of Aqua Patch, Max Elixir, all of that stuff, I think that Water could actually become meta just because of all of those ridiculous additions. So let me know what you guys think. How good is Water going to be with the release of Guardians Rising, and why? I would love to hear your guys' opinions. But anyway, on to the actual deck. Like I said, it is centered around Primarina-GX, and really, this is just a Primarina version of my Waterbox deck that I showed with Lapras-GX. I just removed Regice, a copy of Glaceon, and a copy of Lapras to throw in a line of Popplio through Primarina in order to be able to use Bubble Beat. That's exactly what this deck focuses on, with I can't speak. Powering up Bubble Beat to hit as hard as possible. 10 damage plus 20 times the amount of water energy attached to all of your Pokemon. And really, Primarina is going to have a really tough time getting knocked out. So you're able to Bubble Beat twice, heal off with Rough Seas, switch between Lapras and Primarina to hit hard, and just go from there. So there's actually a pretty good amount of synergy between Lapras and Primarina, because obviously Lapras, once it attacks with Blizzard Burn, it cannot attack next turn, so all you do is just use Manaphy's Free Retreat, go into Primarina, and if you have both of those guys up, Bubble Beat's going to be hitting for at least 110 damage, which is more than enough to clean up for a Blizzard Burn on the previous turn. So nice amount of synergy between those two guys. And this deck, while I was super skeptical of it at first, okay, I'm not going to lie to you and say it's like actually really good, because it's not. It's a decent deck, but this deck was actually a lot more solid than I anticipated, and I'm hoping I'll be able to show that off to you guys when we actually get into the matches with the deck. But I'm just going to go one by one with the Pokemon and tell you why I have them in the numbers that they are. 3 Shaymin. I have a pretty heavy number of Shaymin just because this deck relies a lot on being able to draw cards and not necessarily having to use your supporter to do so. So I put in 3 Shaymin instead of 2, because also, without 3 Shaymin, there's only 12 Pokemon in this deck. And so I was like, you know what? there's room for one more, so I decided to throw one more in there, even though you're only going to be using max of 2 Shaymin per game. Having 3 so that you still have 2-in-1's prize is very, very nice. 1 Glaceon, just because, I mean, it's a pseudo Waterbox deck, so Crystal Ray is always nice, especially in this GX-heavy format, where a lot of evolutions are attacking. Crystal Ray can buy you the time you need, set up KOs with Blizzard Burn and Bubble Beat, etc., etc. Lapras as our big basic that we usually power up because, like I said, of the synergy between Blizzard Burn and Bubble Beat. And also, what's kind of cool is that you have 2 options of GX attacks. You can paralyze your opponent with Lapras' Ice Beam and hit for 100 to set up for a knockout next turn, or if you get a bunch of damage on your board and your opponent's deck relies on little bits of damage here and there and not taking big one-hit knockouts, then you can use Grand Echo in order to be able to just heal off all the damage from your Pokemon and go from there. So it's a pretty cool combination of those two, being able to have 2 options of GX attacks, and then Lapras also Blizzard Burn and Bubble Beat, like I said, and then collect early game. Slap an energy onto Lapras, draw 3 cards if you can't get anything going, so that's really nice. And also, by the way, you're never going to be using Collect once Aqua Patch... okay, I'm sorry, I'll stop talking about Guardians Rising. I just think that Aqua Patch... I mean, really, any deck that... well, any type that gets that type of patch is going to immediately get a gigantic buff because that's ridiculous. But I'm sorry, I'll stop talking about it. Back to the deck. 2 Manaphy, running 2 because this is absolutely crucial to the strategy because Aqua Tube gives free treat to all of your Pokemon with water energy attached to it. Honestly, this is incredibly crucial. Like, you cannot have this strategy be as good without it because all of a sudden you can't just Blizzard Burn into a strong Bubble Beat because you'd have to manually retreat with Lapras, you'd have to manually retreat with Primarina, manually retreat with Glaceon, and all of those things have 2 energy, and that's discarding 2 water energy, all of which you need to be able to attack. So Manaphy, absolutely integral to the strategy. And then 2-1-2 line of Popplio through Primarina. I mean, Primarina, this deck is centered around it, but you have so many different attackers that you don't need to run a super heavy line of it. That being said, we still want to run heavy enough that where we can get 1 out, and once you get 1 out, that's really all you generally need, because what Primarina does is it attacks with Bubble Beat, hits for a ton of damage, while you power up attackers on the bench. So Primarina, what you do is you send it in, have that huge HP number allow it to take hits, while dishing out a lot of damage and powering up attackers in the background, and then when Primarina goes down, you should have more attackers powered up. So that is kind of what Primarina does. That's why we're able to get away with a 2-1-2 line of that. 4, Dive Ball to search out all of our water Pokemon, and Dive Ball is just another reason that water... okay, sorry. Just, okay, water could very well be OP in the next with Guardians Rising coming out. That's all I'm going to say. But Dive Ball, search out all of our water Pokemon without having to discard. Doesn't get out Shaymin, so that's why we have a couple Ultra Ball. Well, not a couple. We have 3 Ultra Ball down here, just because Dive Ball is so much better. However, you still want to be able to search out a Shaymin when you need one. So we're running an almost full line of Ultra Ball, but not quite. 2, Energy Switch. These will be completely replaced with Aqua Patch, but for the time being, we don't have it. So you can Max Elixir onto like a Shaymin or a Manaphy or something like that, and that energy will not be wasted. You can just move it to an attacker when you draw the Energy Switch later. So pretty nice synergy in this deck, and also between 2 Laprases, I've encountered this a lot, where you Blizzard Burn with 1 while you have a 1 energy Lapras on the bench. You can't attack next turn, so what you do is retreat into the other Lapras, manually attach, Energy Switch onto it, and go from there. So really, really cool in this deck. Energy Switch opens up a lot of different options. 4, Max Elixir to get energy out and is our main mode of energy acceleration in this deck. 2, Rare Candy to go straight from a Popplio to Primarina, and also I'm running 3 ways of getting from Popplio to Primarina, including 1 Brionne in the middle, or Brionne, I think it's Brionne, but running 3 just because it gives you more options and you're not super reliant on one or the other. 1 Super Rod to mainly get back energy. I mean, yeah, in this deck it has the added benefit of getting back Primarina if you need to get those things back into your deck, like if you have to discard them with Sycamore early on. But really, they're for getting back energy into your deck. That way you can Max Elixir late game or just attach to attack. 4, Trainers Mail helps with consistency. Just look at the top 4 cards, grab whatever you want, especially in a deck that you can have explosive turn 1s. Trainers Mail is ridiculously good. 4 Ultra Ball, like I said. 4 VS Seeker to reuse all of our supporters. Then as for these supporters, you have my general line of 2N, 4 Sycamore. That's what I always go with. That's what I'm always comfortable with. Let me know if you guys have like a different line. That's just something that I've used consistently, and it's performed well for me in almost every scenario. 1 Lysandre, the only reason I'm not running 2 is because this deck is a little bit jam-packed in order to fit in a 2-1-2 of Popplio through Primarina and 2 Rare Candy. However, if you guys want to run another Lysandre, I definitely would recommend that. I just didn't have the room in this deck. And then as for the final tech supporter, 1 Brock's Grit to be able to put back multiple energy and Pokemon in your deck for late game. Like if you get a Lapras with 3 energy knocked out, well, all of a sudden your Lapras attack is gone, your Primarina's attack is significantly weakened. Brock's Grit's able to put those back into your deck to potentially still have use for them late game. 3 Rough Seas, because Rough Seas is ridiculous with water. I mean, especially with the super bulky Lapras and Primarina, those things last forever. Like, you attack with the Primarina, get hit for a bunch of damage, retreat into your Lapras, which is also super bulky, Rough Seas, and now you have a Primarina that's slowly getting healed, and then Lapras at the same time is attacking, and then you can just switch between those two, Rough Seas both times. I mean, it just has such good synergy in this deck. I mean, this combination right here of Lapras, Primarina, Manaphy, and Rough Seas leads to so many unkillable situations that it's kind of awesome. 1 Fighting Fury Belt, only running 1 because even though our main attacker in this deck is not cannot take advantage of it, 1 Fighting Fury Belt still helps in a lot of different situations, especially giving Glaceon and Lapras some added longevity. So I had a spot, so I threw in a Fighting Fury Belt. I would actually highly recommend against taking it out. I think Fighting Fury Belt, even the 1 copy, just gives you that extra longevity when you need it and helps out in a lot of different situations. And then we have 11 Water Energy in this deck. Why 11? Well, Max Elixir, you look at the top 6 cards and attach a basic energy that you find. Well, I'm making sure that just over 1/6 of our deck is basic water energy, so statistically speaking, we should be able to hit a Max Elixir every single time based on a deck of 60 cards. I know that that's not always the case, but I like to just play the odds in this case, and so I'm running 11 water energy. But yeah, that is the deck. Before I start talking about Guardians Rising again, let's go ahead and see this deck in action. Alrighty, we have found one against a fighting grass and normal deck against Cyril Z 87. So honestly, this looks like the Machamp Arados deck. So I mean, it could be different. It could also be Vileplume. Actually, it's a lot more likely to be Vileplume Zygarde. I don't know why, but ever since I ran into the Machamp Arados deck, I always immediately think that when I see a fighting and grass deck. But I mean, Zygarde Vileplume is unfortunately still alive and well in this meta, much to the dismay of many people. So let's cross our fingers that we don't have to go up against it, because that would make me very sad if we did. I start off with actually a very nice hand. I'm actually going to start with Popplio and then have Lapras on the bench. That way I can Max Elixir to it to potentially get a turn 1 Ice Beam or Blizzard Burn or something like that. So, well, as soon as my opponent picks their starters, I'll be able to anyway. I want to have an N, that way I don't have to discard 2 of my Primarina. I can discard 1, and that's not a big problem. Discarding 2 would be a little bit of a problem. Although on the bright side, that means that both of them aren't prized in. Okay, this is a Machamp Arados deck. That's really cool. I could grab the N, but I think I'm just going to grab the Max Elixir. Try to get set up relatively quickly. Ultra Ball, probably get rid of a Primarina and a Shaymin. I know getting rid of a Shaymin seems kind of weird, but just for the sake of this turn, and okay, the Brionne is in the deck as well. 2 Rare Candy are, and 9 Water Energy. Good to know. Let's grab the Manaphy and then Shaymin for 5 cards, because if I can get a rare candy, then I'll just hold on to my hand. Otherwise, I will try to get a new hand. And okay, so I get... I don't want to discard my hand, so I'm just going to go ahead and Dive Ball, grab the... Probably grab the Brionne. There's only 2 N. That's fine. Let's grab... I want to grab another Lapras. Yeah, let's just grab another Lapras for the time being. Play that down just to be something that can take a hit. And then I am going to just leave my Popplio active, as I'm not in any damage of any danger of being knocked out by damage from Machamp on turn 1. So, pretty solid turn. I would have liked to have gotten a supporter that wouldn't have made me discard 2 VS Seekers and my other remaining Primarina, and my opponent ends me, so I am very, very glad that I decided to just sit on my hand for the turn. And the Parallel City is actually going to be kind of annoying. Well, I get another N, so that is very nice as well. I might be able to actually Ice Beam this turn if I'm able to hit a Max Elixir onto my Lapras. And this is exactly why I did not retreat my Popplio, because this way, if I had retreated my Popplio, I would have had to go into like one of my Laprases that doesn't have... I'd have to go into my Lapras that has the energy, so I wouldn't be able to Max Elixir to it, or the Lapras with no energy, at which point it wouldn't help. What I am going to do is go ahead and Dive Ball, because I didn't get the rare candy. I'm just going to grab the Brionne. I mean, I really don't need to rare candy into a Primarina at this time, because really this deck functions just fine without the Primarina. However, the Primarina is always very nice. And then I'm going to go ahead and grab another Shaymin with the Ultra Ball. Now Max Elixir, see if I can hit it, which I do. So now I'll have a Blizzard Burn or an Ice Beam GX, depending on, well, depending on which one I want to go for. Probably want to go for the Ice Beam GX. Let's go ahead and retreat my Brionne into my Lapras, and then Ice Beam the Machamp, guarantee the 2-hit KO, and... yeah, we are in an awesome position right now. The reason I went for Ice Beam is because Machamp could be able to knock me out with Steaming Mad this coming turn, because I did put 100 damage counters on it. And we do see, okay, Fighting Fury Belt, that's going to be slightly annoying. But you know what? I think we should still be fine. I mean, I'll be able to knock it out with a Blizzard Burn next turn anyway. Yeah, even with the Parallel City, that's not going to help my opponent. Plus, I can't just counter his Stadium with the Rough Seas anyway. So, great position. My opponent does play down a Shaymin. I can Lysandre that thing and knock it out when I decide that I want to. Probably, So my opponent's already gone through 2 Stadiums. I've only gone through 1. I have a counter Stadium in my hand. What is my opponent going to Ultra Ball for? Let's see. Well, so he gets rid of a Carbon Break. Yeah, that thing's not going to be a problem for me to deal with, because all of my attackers are GXs, well, except for Glaceon-EX. But Glaceon isn't useful in this matchup anyway, so I wouldn't really be going for it. My opponent just grabs another Shaymin, so they got to be digging. They got to be digging really, really hard for something. I mean, my opponent must have a specific card that they want. Otherwise, I don't think they'd be digging this hard. Either that or they're just fishing that hard for another Pokemon, which is probably, I can't tell if it's for one card or for a Pokemon, but either way, my opponent is digging very, very hard at this point. Trainers Mail's just gonna grab a VS Seeker. That's fine. I'll still be able to get the one-shot on the Machamp this turn, unless we see that come down. So my opponent must have been digging for the Pokemon Center Lady. But actually, what that does in this case is it prevents my Lapras from being... yeah, my opponent cannot knock out my Lapras now, because he healed so much damage off that it only did 110. What I am going to do, go for another Max Elixir. I hit that, go onto Lapras, and then I will not be able to KO my opponent's Machamp with my Lapras, because I'll only be able to hit the Machamp, put it up to 200 damage, not 220. Which will be a little bit of an issue. However, what I can do now, go ahead and Sycamore, see if I can draw into a way of getting a Primarina and another Water Energy, which I definitely do. That is lovely. Let's see, let's just grab an Energy Switch, I think. Yeah, because this way I can save at least a couple energy off of my Lapras and threaten Blizzard Burn from 2 Laprases as opposed to simply one with 3 energy. But for the time being, I am just going to play the energy onto my Brionne, Dive Ball for a Primarina. Go ahead and evolve that sucker. And yeah, Primarina's in a good spot. I actually think I'm going to Bubble Beat this turn because it'll put my opponent up to... Let's see, how much damage? 1, 2, 3... So there's 6 energy on board. That'll be 130, I think. Yeah, let's go ahead and Bubble Beat. Put my opponent up to 170 damage. And this way, if my opponent Pokemon Center Ladies again, he'll only be at 110 HP. Well, he'll only be at 110 damage, which will not be enough to knock out my Primarina. And if my opponent wants to Lysandre in one of my Pokemon on the bench, he's going to have to try to hit around... he's going to have to try to hit around Confusion, which I really don't think he will do. I mean, if he has to risk it to a coin flip, then he will. But if my opponent Pokemon Center Ladies, which I think he might try to do this turn, then he'll be at 110 HP. He will not be able to bring up any of my Pokemon on the bench and thus not be able to get a KO. And then he'll only be able to do 210 to my Primarina, which, I mean, sets me up to be able to knock him out the next turn, and then while healing off damage with Rough Seas and all that. So I'm just in a great position, and that's why I attacked with Primarina as opposed to Blizzard Burn from Lapras, because otherwise my opponent could Pokemon Center Lady and then just KO my Lapras, which is something I really do not want. And yeah, my opponent, even with the strong energy and the Fighting Fury belt, that's just going to be 220. Will that be 250 actually? Oh wait, my opponent could have knocked me out with the strong energy and the... Oops. Well, either way, it looks like my opponent didn't have anything else set up, and I could have just gone between Laprases at that point anyway. So I'm an idiot who cannot math apparently, but you know what? Just pretend that I did something smart on that turn, because I mean, I kind of did by setting up 2 Laprases to be able to Blizzard Burn back-to-back. That way I could just retreat between the 2 and take knockouts. So either way, we're able to win that first one. Primarina came through clutch in the end, although not necessarily in the way that I had kind of wanted it. But either way, good first match. Let's go ahead and try to find another one with this deck. Alrighty, we have found another one against Pancho22 with a normal Psychic and Lightning deck. So, normally I'd think that's Night March, but we're not in Expanded, so thank the Lord we don't have to worry about that. But we do see the coin and the deck box. So this is probably... yeah, okay, this has got to be Mega Rayquaza. There's no way that my opponent would let me go first if this wasn't Mega Rayquaza. Either way, I start off with actually a pretty nice hand. I'm gonna double Popplio, maybe? I mean, I get to go first, so I don't have to play anything down onto my bench necessary. Odds are, I think I'm gonna double Popplio, because that way, when one gets knocked out, I can still have one in the background. And yeah, I'm just gonna go ahead and do that, let my opponent take a prize off of that, because my opponent will have to take 2 prizes anyway. We'll have to take knockouts on 2 prize Pokemon anyway, so a 1 prize will not make a difference. Let's go ahead and grab Glaceon immediately, get that thing set up as soon as I possibly can. Double Max Elixir, there we go. On to my Glaceon. Ultra Ball, get rid of the Sycamore and 1 Primarina for a Shaymin to be able to draw into a fresh 6 cards. Okay, wow. Looks like both my rare candies are prized. So, unfortunate right there. However, I'll probably just be attacking with Glaceon early game anyway. I don't want to have to get rid of a couple VS Seekers this early, but I mean, if I have to in order to draw cards, I will. Let's go ahead and Dive Ball. Let's Dive Ball, I think, for a Lapras, maybe? Yeah, because that thing will be bulky enough, and then also the GX attack will come in handy at some point to 2-shot a Rayquaza, and... yeah, now I'm just going to Sycamore, get rid of 2 VS Seekers, and... wow, that's actually really nice. Let's see if I can power up a Glaceon turn 1. Can we do it? Yes, we do. Although I'm just going to put this on the Popplio because, you know, I have a Water Energy in my hand. And, yeah, so phenomenal turn 1 for me. able to get a Glaceon completely powered up, able to get another energy on board. I'll be able to get a Brionne next turn and still get a an attack off. So, well, and still get a supporter. Sorry, I couldn't think of what I was saying. I also have a full bench. My opponent does counter my Rough Seas with Skyfield. The reason I played Rough Seas that early, you know, apart from the obvious discard with Sycamore otherwise, so you might as well play it, is it forces my opponent to counter the stadium, although to be fair with Mega Rayquaza you kind of counter it immediately anyway, so you know what, my point is absolutely moot and means nothing, so ignore me. The cool thing about Primarina in this matchup is that Primarina has 250 HP. Now, what's the significance besides the obvious ridiculous bulk? Well, Mega Rayquaza cannot knock it out in one hit. That means I can paralyze it with Lapras, I can get some damage off with Glaceon and Crystal Ray, I can just, you know, do all of this different shenanigan stuff. And then, worst comes to worst, I just bring in a Primarina to take a hit, while also two-shotting a Rayquaza, and then potentially Lysandering up and knocking out two different Shaymins that my opponent puts on the bench. So, one other thing, my heavy line of Rough Seas is going to be incredibly necessary in this matchup, and I cannot waste any of them at all. I'm going to have to make sure that I only play them, and the only way that they get discarded is if my opponent counters my stadium. One cool thing I can do, actually, is take advantage of my opponent's Skyfield by Ultra Balling for a Shaymin this turn, and then when I inevitably draw into the Rough Seas, play the Rough Seas down to discard the Shaymin. So really, I just get free draw with none of the drawbacks, and also I get a card out of my deck that I wouldn't necessarily want to draw into. Okay, so this is getting kind of scary. My opponent still hasn't used their supporter for the turn, and they already have a fully powered up Mega Rayquaza. All my opponent needs is one more Pokemon on the bench, and to draw into Lysandre, and I'm basically screwed. Like, I kind of sort of went all in on my Glaceon turn 1. So if my opponent is able to knock that out, it's just going to be a horrible matchup for me, because not only is my opponent going to be up by 2 prizes, but I will have no counter to it. We do see that my opponent runs Pokemon Ranger. However, Glaceon can only be KO'd by a 6 Pokemon bench Emerald Break. And we see that my opponent gets rid of another Skyfield that is huge. That means that right now, he and I are, at worst for me, at the worst, we are even in terms of stadiums left. Best case scenario, my opponent only runs 4, and we are ahead and will win the Stadium War. Otherwise, I mean, why wouldn't you run Mega Rayquaza with 4 Skyfield? So if I can get my opponent to simply discard one more Skyfield and I play my Rough Seas perfectly, I will win the Stadium War, and which will pretty much guarantee that I win the overall war. My opponent dug so far through their deck. They went through 2/3 of their deck. And we haven't seen the Lysandre yet. We don't see the Lysandre. I think my opponent Sycamored, but I was too busy rambling about something. But either way, my opponent takes 1 prize. That actually doesn't mean anything because all of my attackers or Pokemon that I'm going to be using are crap. Okay, not that my Pokemon are crap, but crap that I'm going to be using all 4 of my VS Seekers this turn. Oh boy. So, by turn 2, I will have gone through every single VS Seeker in my deck. That is wonderful and is a very bad thing. Ooh, unless I draw the end. So what I'm going to do, play the Lapras down. That way I can discard both of my Shaymin with my, when I play down the Rough Seas, go ahead and do that. Make my opponent go down to 5, which is not enough to knock out even a Glaceon. Meanwhile, I can get rid of both Shaymins that are on my bench. I mean, having 2 Manaphy on the bench isn't necessarily something that you want, but it's not a horrible thing, because if your opponent knocks one out, you still have free retreat. So that's nice at the very least. I draw into a Primarina, and I have no hope of drawing into a Rare Candy because it is prized. However, drawing into that Dive Ball can get me a Brionne, which is still very nice. And what I'm going to be able to do this turn is evolve my Popplio into a Brionne, and threaten a Primarina next turn. So do I want to Super Rod stuff back into the deck? There were no energy, so I don't think I want to do that just yet. And the water energy turned into fire really quick. Did you guys see that? Either way, gonna Crystal Ray, hit the Mega Ray for 70 damage, set it up to be 2 hit, I guess. 1 more hit from Crystal Ray, and I guess like a Ice Beam or Blizzard Burn or Bubble Beat or something like that. My opponent, let's see, he has to have a Lysandre or a Ranger, but if he wastes his supporter for the turn on one of those, then he will not be able to get a Skyfield, which will not allow him to knock out my, not allow him to knock out my Glaceon, which, I mean, is phenomenal. So I'm in a great spot. Actually, a Lysandre would allow him to knock out a Manaphy, so that's beside the point. But either way, it wouldn't have allowed him to take out my Glaceon, which is the important part of this matchup. My opponent plays another Skyfield. I'm going to be able to counter that once again with my Rough Seas, which will limit my opponent so ridiculously much in terms of the prizes they're able to use. So my opponent does Buddy Buddy Rescue. This actually works out really nicely for me, because once again, I'm going to be able to have a no drawback Shaymin. I mean, I'm going to be able to play down a no drawback Shaymin because I have the Rough Seas in my hand. I can play the energy onto Brionne, play the Primarina, play down the Shaymin, draw the cards, and then immediately discard it with the Rough Seas. So that's going to work out beautifully for me. Meanwhile, my opponent, I don't think has gone through a... Did they go through a supporter? They probably did, and I just didn't pay attention. I really should pay attention as to whether or not my opponent plays a supporter. To be fair, it's not like it'd impact anything. Like, there's nothing I can do this turn to prevent my opponent from playing a supporter or saving my Glaceon should my opponent decide to go for an attack. Either way, my opponent does just manually retreat into Jolteon and go for a Swift. That's not going to matter at all, because what I can do is play the energy onto the Brionne, go ahead and evolve it into a Primarina, and then do I want to go ahead and... Do I want to Super Rod those 3 back into the deck just so I can burn a card? You know what? I'm going to go ahead and do that just in case I draw into like an Ultra Ball or something that can allow me to get another Shaymin. Because right now, as many Shaymins as I play down before I play down the Rough Seas is literally just bonus cards for me. Ooh, Fighting Fury Belt. That is very nice. Going to play that right onto my Glaceon. And then let's go ahead and counter it. If my opponent counters my Rough Seas once again, then I can worry about my other Shaymin. Otherwise, it's just discard fodder, and that is fine. Let's get rid of that Shaymin, and then, well, first things first, heal up. And then end my opponent, save my VS Seeker and my Sycamore for later. Oh, that is very nice. That is a very nice draw right there. What I can do is... Well, first I'm going to Max Elixir, try to get more energy on the board, which I do. Get onto the Lapras, and then I only have 7 energy on board, which is 10 damage short of being able to one-shot this Jolteon. I'm going to play the Dive Ball just so I have better odds of drawing into something that I can use, or having discard fodder with my Sycamore. I'm just going to go ahead and Crystal Ray, because while my opponent will be able to heal with Jolteon, it'll still set up a Bubble Beat knockout for next turn with my Primarina. And even if my opponent sets up a full bench and gets another Skyfield into play, there's nothing he can do about it. Like, my Primarina is not going to be going down in one hit to a Mega Rayquaza unless you do some kind of like Kukui or Plus Power play, although I don't even think Plus Power is necessarily in this format. I don't think so. It could very well be, and just nobody uses it because it's kind of a super situational card. But either way, my opponent is just going to grab a VS Seeker. What are they going to do? They're retreating into the Rayquaza. So my opponent has to be going for a Pokemon Ranger this turn. There is no reason you would bring in Mega Rayquaza unless you were going to VS Seeker and go for a Pokemon Ranger. My opponent is just... Oh, okay. He's going to Lysandre into Manaphy and knock it out. That's an excellent play. Like, I can't argue with that. Takes him 2 prizes. Now he is up 3 prizes to 6 that I have left. However, I'm not scared at all because I think my board setup is still really, really good. What I can do right here is go ahead and attach energy to the Lapras, and then honestly just Bubble Beat to knock out this Mega Rayquaza, take 2 prizes. My Primarina-GX isn't going down in one hit. I still have a fully powered up Glaceon on the bench. Now I have a fully powered up Lapras as well to be able to freeze something. And like I'm just in such a phenomenal position. Even if my opponent goes for like a Flash Ray or a Swift with Jolteon, I'll be able to heal up and then Bubble Beat to knock out the Jolteon and take 2 more prizes. So, I mean, I'm just in such a phenomenal position right now. I will be able to get another energy on board, hit for 190. Actually, what I can even do is... Okay, my opponent just decides to end me. That is fine. I mean, I have 170 damage on board. That's what I need. I even draw into a Lysandre. So this is very nice. My opponent is just going to Swift, hit the Primarina for 30 damage. Well, guess what? That damage is now gone. Okay, yeah, and what I could have done right there is either knocked out the Jolteon, taken 2 prizes there, Lysandred in the Rayquaza, potentially knocked that thing out, or not knocked it out, but hit it for a ton of damage right there. And yeah, my board setup was just way, way too good right there. Primarina was too bulky to be able to knock out. Glaceon finally did something in a Waterbox deck. I mean, I felt bad because all the Waterbox decks, all the Waterbox videos that I do, Glaceon really never does much of anything. However, when I play off-screen, it does amazingly. Like, it just wins matchups. So I'm glad Glaceon was finally able to show you guys what it can do. But yeah, that is going to be the deck, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, all of that stuff. And this is Styx, signing out. Why not? See you guys.